Hello, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome once again to Harry and Jen Do Horror with Friends. On this podcast, we pick current horror films to analyze, critique, and use as a springboard for further conversation. This week, we're joined by Jen's friend Sam MacMillan to analyze and critique The Substance, starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. We chatted up about the patriarchy, beauty standards, aging, body horror, drug abuse, and cinematic illusions. It's an incredibly rich conversation, and we are so excited to share it with you. You should know that on this podcast, we completely spoil our movies. So if you have not seen The Substance yet, make sure that you check that one out first. As always, if you have a minute, we welcome your ratings and reviews on your podcast streaming services, but the best is when people actually share these episodes with their friends. So if you want to help us grow the show, please go ahead, hit that share button, send it to a buddy. Next month, we will discuss Heretic, directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods and starring Hugh Grant. That movie is about a pair of missionaries who knock on the door of the diabolical Mr. Reed. Will they make it out alive? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. You could find out by hopping over to Max or renting it from a variety of platforms. More on Heretic later, however. For now, it's time to talk to Sam about The Substance.
Have you all read The Picture of Dorian Gray?
Oh, God.
I feel like I must have in high school at some point. Is there an attic involved?
Yeah, there's an attic and a painting in the attic.
Look at me go.
Look at you go. I'm Harry Nichols. I am a singer-songwriter. I am an English teacher. I'm a dad of 2 small children. And let's see. We're at the time of recording. It is not yet Christmas, and I am already done with Christmas. I feel very ready to not, because I have 2 small kids. They're so excited, and it's so magical, and that magic is exhausting. I just want to live in a world. I just want to go back to my mundane existence.
How old are they?
They're 7 and 5.
Oh, that's actually a really fun time, though. You get all the good gifts, though.
That's right. That's right. It's a magical age, and they are so excited, and their excitement is like dripping out of their pores. But that was pretty gross.
I'm Jen Lightfoot. I'm an artist and tattoo artist, and I have 2 more days of work, and then I'm on my break, which is awesome. But I'm also done with Christmas because we host my mom, who I love, but by day 4, I'm done.
Did she listen to the podcast?
No.
Thank God.
No, she doesn't understand what podcasts are.
Okay,
so.
cool. Perfect. That's ideal then. That's ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck your mom.
Whoa!
That was too much. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's what half a glass of wine does to Harry.
Oh, no.
Here we are.
And our guest is Sam.
I'm Sam MacMillan. I am a chemist and research scientist at Cornell University. And I haven't really started in on Christmas, but I will say that my mom does know what podcasts are, and she has her own, and she's going to be really mad that I'm on yours before hers.
What?
Wait, what's your mom's podcast about?
It's funnily enough, it's about things for women in their 50s and beyond. So it's kind of like this whole self-expression of
cool.
loving yourself and like coming to terms with, how your body changes and how your
That's
loyalties to yourself change and
It's
all
like
of this.
exactly what our movie's
I know. I almost suggested that she watch the movie, but she really doesn't like horror movies, so I think that might be a bad choice.
I feel like this might not be a good introduction into horror.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so we're here without further ado to talk about The Substance. Mm-hmm. When we do these, we usually ask our guests to summarize as much or as little of this bad boy.
I did my homework.
Ooh.
It's the only 2 lines that I wrote in my notes.
Yes. Oh my God, I love it.
And it is titled, I Did My Homework.
It actually is. I see it. Yeah.
All right. An aging starlet learns a hard lesson about older women in Hollywood. Taking matters into her own hands, she seeks out the substance to reclaim her youth and a better version of herself. Shit hits the fan, though, when she and her other self can't seem to follow the rules.
It's a great. That's like
That's an awesome synopsis. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like on the
perfect.
back of a DVD synopsis.
There you go.
I would say Netflix, but their synopsises are trash. I don't think I said the right plural for synopsis.
Synopses? Maybe?
You're
I
the
oughta
English.
know this.
You're the English teacher.
I'm going to edit that out.
Okay, so analysis.
Yeah.
What did you guys think? Any themes?
A lot of I don't know. Like, I felt like there's a lot of ways that this movie works and addresses a variety of topics. What's something you felt like was one of the bigger topics of the movie?
Well, I think, the biggest one is just the perception of women and how women are portrayed and visualized. And with that, I thought the movie was very interesting in the way that it chose to shoot angles. So there was this almost grotesque use of fisheye lenses, forced perspective, lines all over the place, kind of forcing you to direct your view to Margot's ass or, Demi's wrinkles in her face or something like that. Or even when they're talking to the men, the fisheye lens, the men sort of being distorted. So I think kind of visual perception is one of the key obvious
Definitely.
themes.
And I think the visual perception also changes the tone for certain characters too.
For sure.
Like you said, how the men have that like fish, fisheye kind of lens. Like they kind of are bumbling idiots. Like they're kind of
It really makes you look like a total blowhard.
Yeah.
With when you have that view, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially the way that like
Dennis Quaid.
Wow. Randy Quaid would have been a very different movie.
Very different.
But yeah, there's oh my god, I almost said it too. There's Dennis Quaid. There's the apartment neighbor across the hall.
Yeah.
There's the guy, even in the beginning, who drops his burger on the
Oh
like,
yeah,
star.
The casting guys.
Yeah, the casting
yes.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the elongated those lines, I don't know, it feels very sterile in a way too, like very like on display or something.
Yeah, because they're unbroken, right?
Yeah,
There's no,
yeah.
There's nothing to draw your eye kind of to scenery around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I totally hear that, and that fisheye lens too. I think lends itself also. You might have mentioned this. I'm sorry if I'm just reiterating what you said, but just to some of the like grotesquerie, like the grossness of a lot of the various parts of this movie. But I think particularly like the piggishness of the male characters, I think is like a big focal point. You know, I'm thinking about the scene where Dennis Quaid is in the restaurant and like eating the shrimp, and it's just like so gross.
It's
So
disgusting.
gross.
And like it's all over his face.
It might be the grossest part of the film.
He's very shiny in that scene.
He is.
Yeah.
Oh, the other guy, just quickly, that also kind of has the, I don't know if it's like the fisheye lens, but kind of like that, like perceived as kind of stupid, is the high school classmate, even though he's like the nice version.
Yeah.
But he's
but
like,
is he though?
that's the thing. We don't know because we never see him again, but
Right.
almost excited because she's famous, I guess.
Well, and I think that he's got a rosy-hued vision of who she is based on his obvious, like, younger, sexual fascination with her. Like, it's almost like he's not actually interested in dating her.
Yeah.
He's interested in her because she represents this thing that he has always idolized for,
Well, and I may be jumping ahead, and I also may be misremembering, but when later on, when he's texting her, being like, "Are you okay?" It's a nice guy thing to say, but if you look at the timestamps that were coming up on the messages, it was like one after the other after the other.
Damn.
And it was just like, she'll respond when she's ready to respond.
right,
she
yeah.
doesn't owe you her
Yeah.
attention.
That's right.
Yeah,
Fuck
you
off.
guys don't even know each other, really. Like,
Right, yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
So he's not the nice guy then. He's like a different
Well, and I think
form
it's
of-
supposed to kind of go between those lines of maybe he is, but probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like there were really pretty roundly, no good male characters in the film, unless I'm incorrect. There was one man. So, in the middle of the movie, when she is, kind of having a crisis about not being able to respect the balance and all of this, she ends up in a diner, and she talks to an elderly man who is having the same situation. Clearly, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get the sense that he was objectifying her the way that virtually every single other man in the movie.
Because his other self, I know they are one, but the younger self was the nurse who basically examined her and gave her the phone number to call the substance. So in a way,
but is that sexually driven?
I guess I'm not sexually driven.
Well, and I would also say with that, even though the two people are the same, they don't share the same brain or the same, what do I want to say, aspirations. The core aspiration of being famous or being beautiful or all of that might be the same, but the way that the younger version of the guy was kind of viewing her versus the way that the older version were very different. And so I don't think it was necessarily sexually motivated in the start. It kind of felt that way because he was kind of gripping her spine a little bit to check her.
He's you're perfect.
Yeah. But we don't know why he's doing that in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually interesting though. Yeah, I know it's not really, we're not going into critique yet, but
Jen always wants to hop into critique.
No, I know I do. I'm not.
She's not, but she is.
No, but how you're saying, they don't share the same brain, really. And I was wondering, because we don't know what Demi Moore was like when she was younger.
Elizabeth Sparkle.
Right.
Yeah, Elizabeth Sparkle. We don't know what Elizabeth Sparkle was like when she was younger. So was she like Sue? Does that actually fit? Was she cutthroat? Was she and then the other thing with the brain part reminded me, because I want to know what you guys think of this. When Elizabeth Sparkle does the activate thing for the first time and she falls on the floor and her back opens up and all those things, it cuts to a black screen with a heart that's on fire. So what I couldn't figure out what to make of that. What do you guys think of the heart?
That was
on
a
fire?
super interesting image that also stuck in my brain, and I also didn't quite know what to do with. For me, it's about obviously the heart as a symbol of vitality, right? It's about keeping you alive, but also it's symmetrical, right? And so there's this, I think, invocation of the two halves here being somehow connected, right? But I don't know. And then it's on fire at I don't know. What is that? Did you notice that, or was that something that?
To be honest, I don't remember the first part, but I just watched the last part, and so I remember that part.
Right.
But I guess to that sense that you're talking about, if you think about the two chambers of the heart, they're separated by a wall, right? That very thin wall, and the two can't operate without the other. One is pumping blood in, the other is pumping blood out. And so it could be kind of this symbiosis of the two of them being the same and having to go through this process where, one is hibernating and the other is existing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about the heart.
Yeah.
I could be talking out of my ass. I'm a chemist, not a doctor.
Same.
It's my mom likes to think it's the same thing. But
you're closer to a doctor
that is
than
true.
either of us.
Yeah.
So
okay. I'll take
that makes
it.
you basically a doctor.
Hey. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So something that I had wanted to bring up that I had seen as a critique of this movie, and I'm not trying to hop into critique, but because I actually think this will lead us to an analytical conversation, but the main critique that I have seen of this movie has been about the sort of heavy-handed way that it treats the topic of the patriarchy, beauty standards, stuff like that. People finding it like just like very like overt, and I wondered if first of all, did you all find it the same? Like, did you find it to be like kind of heavy-handed in that way?
I'm going to let you go first because I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Okay.
I mean, in a way, yes, but I've seen a few films where it just beats you over the head and there's nothing like interesting done with it.
Yeah.
So I feel like even though it's obvious as to like what's happening, what?
Like Smile.
Oh yeah. I'm okay with that aspect of it because it's a new concept. Like it's a new way to do it. Like it's interesting to me. Like it's visually interesting. The characters are interesting. Like, and they're not saying it. Like they're like showing you. Like like she hates herself. She says she hates herself. Yes, she says that. Right. And she obviously shows how much she hates herself when she goes on the date. And like even though she's gorgeous, she keeps like wiping the makeup off and she thinks she's just hideous because she's comparing herself to the other woman. So I guess, yes, it's heavy-handed, but at the same time, there's like lack of dialogue or a silence to it. And okay, so I wrote down one thing that's in the Substance advertisement video that she pops on, and it says, "You can't escape from yourself." And I thought that was such a simple, brilliant way to put it without saying women hate their bodies because X. It's like you can't escape your thoughts. Like, and I just wrote down very simple things, but like the idea of the movie where like women are told to have the perfect body, the impossible body. Often like, women have, or I would say the desire to be or look like someone else, making us like hate our bodies, ourselves, wanting to escape ourselves, but you, quote, can't escape yourself. Like, I actually really like that. I thought that was pretty smart.
I understand the desire for everything to be an A24 movie, right? Where there's some subtlety that's very artistic and is very pretty, but not everything has to be that way. And especially when we're talking about something that is so loud and intrusive in women's minds constantly, why shouldn't the movie reflect that?
Sure.
So people are talking about how it's kind of hitting you over the head with its lack of subtlety and over the topness, and it's just, I don't even know if that's a word, we'll call it that.
Sure.
But I really don't agree with that criticism because it's so prevalent and it's so loud in so many people's brains, and it is kind of this constant pressure on the back of your head that I think the movie does a good job of reflecting that and how it can be turned out of control so quickly. You bring up the scene where Elizabeth is in the bathroom redoing her makeup 20 million times. And I don't wear a lot of makeup, but I can totally relate. I've been there. Tried to do eyeliner once. Tried to do a cat eye because of you.
Oh, no.
And
wow, Jen.
Yeah, it's all your fault. And, there's the rule in doing your own makeup that your eyes are supposed to be sisters, not twins. And mine were cousins thrice removed in separate area codes. And, I was supposed to go out to dinner with my husband, and I had redone it so many times that it just looked like I had been crying because my face was super red, and I was still hungry, so I wanted to go out. So then I didn't have makeup, and I looked like an absolute wreck, right? And it just felt bad all around because all I wanted to do was have a cute cat eye, right? So, it's one of those things where even if it's not it's not how you present yourself on the day-to-day, like my job, for instance, I don't go into lab looking to look cute. I'm there to do chemistry. But that doesn't mean that I can't be. And so even if it's not at the forefront of your mind as how you want to present yourself, I still think that there is that pressure to fit into some sort of visual mold. And I think the overtness of the movie brings that into the forefront in ways that makes people appreciate that a bit more.
Yeah.
But maybe not since people were criticizing that
I
it wasn't.
totally agree with you. Who are making these critiques?
That's actually the point that I was about to bring up, because it's all men. It's all men.
Of course it is, because they're the problem.
Yeah, who would not, understand that lived reality, right? And so I love what you've both said about this, actually. You looked like you were about to say a thing, though, and I was just...
No, I was going to say that I tried really hard to not read anything about the movie before watching and after, but a couple of things kind of crawled onto, the feed, and so I was looking at them, and I did see reviews that were written by women, and I'm... can't see it because we're not on video, but air quotes here. I'm pretty sure it was ghost written by a guy.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was like, a woman would never, ever say this.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
I mean, that makes sense. And the director of this movie is a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is not known for her subtleties, so why are we getting crazy about that?
Well, a lot of it is, and a lot of it is clear stylistic choice. I mean, it's all clear stylistic choice. I mean, I totally hear that. I wondered if also maybe some of the overtness of, just the patriarchy critique, was there to serve as a backdrop for some other... I felt like I was seeing some other interesting commentary in this movie as well about other aspects. Like, first and foremost, like the sort of like alternative health grift.
Are you saying like today how we're in like quote unquote like fitness culture?
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, I also think that there is a section of the I feel that there is a section of the like wellness industry that is predatory on people who are struggling to find alternatives for situations that they can't really control.
Absolutely.
And one of them is like has a lot to do with like supplements. Like there's a big supplement thing. And again, they prey on people who are stuck in situations they can't control. People like Demi Moore, who is, a woman in the context of this like absolutely static and unchangeable sexist patriarchy around her, right? There's never any hope for any of those men around her to learn things, right? It's just it's presented as absolute fact, and as such, I think it really puts the means by which she tries to escape into the foreground. And I see that as like very critical of, again, like the sort of alternative predatory grifting that we get. Like I think about like the overwhelming sketchiness of the Substance organization,
for sure.
right? That video she watches, holy fuck, right?
The little door that she has to go through, like climb under.
Yeah.
I see that as a symbolic stooping. I think that she has to like, she has to lower herself to the level to accept this, what we all as the viewers recognize as overwhelmingly sketchy, right? And yet because she has no alternative. She's
even the like I thought the graphic design was brilliant when she opens the box, but I was like, I would want more instructions.
Yes.
Especially about the activating part, or not the activating.
Any of it.
What do they have to do throughout the week?
Oh, the stabilizer.
Stabilizer. I was like, what? How did you know?
I kind of liked that they didn't give us instructions as viewers.
Oh, yes.
And it was just kind of this understood thing. Like, if you were in desperation mode, you're going to find the way to get what you need.
Absolutely.
I like
and
that.
you will accept anything.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think about, again, those predatory people and the products that they sell, where if you're thinking about it from the substance organization's point of view, they don't want to tell you, right? They want to deprive you of the dangerous information that could lead to legal trouble for themselves. So there's a logical reason
That's true.
for the sparsity of that packaging and the fact that they don't tell you that, if you abuse your time, then there are consequences for the person on the other side, right? So that all totally made sense to me. And then just the fact of the disparity between Sue and Elizabeth, and the fact that they're just totally different people, I see as very symbolically relevant to the way that people in desperate situations ascribe to these sort of alternative ideas and kind of essentially become different people from who they were before, right? Because like one thing leads to another. But you're in a cult.
But part of me still reads, because the whole thing was like, you are one. Like the substance kept repeating that. So I feel like in a way, I do still think that Sue reflects the way that Elizabeth probably was when she was younger, especially towards the end when Sue, I'm trying to fucking remember their names.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid. When Sue's teeth start falling out and she starts to like disintegrate essentially.
Yeah.
And she makes that rash choice like Elizabeth did in the beginning to activate again. I just feel like I'm like, oh, there are overlaps in personality there.
Sure, but there's so much emphasis also placed on how much the two sides of the same woman don't understand each other.
Well, yeah, like, of course, because the one is older and has different experiences, where the younger one doesn't have any of those.
So one thing I'll say about that is I thought it was really interesting, and well, I'm going to get back to your incognito mode substance people, but when the activation happens and, Demi Moore goes to sleep, I guess, and Sue starts running around and then Demi Moore comes back, I find it really interesting that Elizabeth, sorry, not Demi Moore, she goes and she checks on Sue to make sure that she's getting all of the food that she needs. Mm-hmm. But the first thing that Sue does is build the little chamber to put her in to squirrel her away so that she doesn't have to look at her.
Right.
And as the movie progresses, you see the ways at which the younger self is rebelling by sucking your life force away, by destroying your apartment and all of this. And the way that Elizabeth is getting back at her is so funny. Just the whole overeating and the French
leaving
cooking.
The apartment a mess.
Oh my gosh. I could not stop laughing at that because that is sometimes when you're having a day, that's the only way that you can regain control of it is by doing these things that, objectively you're harming yourself more than anything else. And I think that's another big theme of this movie is not only the way that we look at women, but the way that women look at themselves and the way that they treat themselves and the violence against themselves, right? To speak more on the anonymous substance people, the day after my husband and I watched this, we were at a bar and they were playing daytime ads, like as seen on TV. Yeah. And we're listening to this just kind of, at the corner of our eye and all this. And Jane Seymour was hawking Crepe Away, which is a cream to get rid of crepey skin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was just I was like, somebody has to have me on camera, right? Because this seems too good to be true for us to have just watched this movie and see this.
See that, yeah.
But when I was thinking back on it, that's just daytime TV. That's the way it's always been. I can remember back in the early 90s, my mom doing Jane Fonda's, jazzercise or whatever it was. Yeah. And so it's always been around us. It's just kind of taking different forms. And when you mentioned the stagnation of Elizabeth's kind of the circle that she's in where she can't really change anything. I thought it was really interesting that they chose an aerobics show.
Instructor,
Because does anybody do that anymore? I have no idea.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems
and it would
does
not
seem
be
very
primetime
dated.
TV these days. And so the fact that they were shown, I had a really hard time actually figuring out what decade they were trying to fit the movie in.
Yes, I was wondering that too.
I think it's clearly a modern, because there's cell phones, there's all this, but...
Yes.
But like the cars all looked fairly old.
Yes.
Are they pulling like an It Follows kind of thing?
I was
It
wondering
could be,
that, where
yeah.
it's like the decade, it's blurry.
Yeah.
Or is it like an alternate world? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it could speak to just the timelessness of the topics it's addressing.
Sure.
It kind of doesn't matter what decade it's in. There will be some form of that thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And also to the audience that they're really talking to, right? I don't think that this is a movie that's necessarily speaking to 21-year-olds.
No, definitely
and
not.
it's also really not speaking to women who are in their 60s. It's kind of speaking to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we remember, you know, the fitness videos and like all that sort of stuff. So maybe that's another reason for the stylistic choice.
Definitely. I thought also that there was a little bit. I thought so. What I liked about this movie, previewing my critique, is I find that it's a very serviceable story to think about a lot of topics, actually. I also thought about this as, I think we maybe touched on this a little bit. I feel like there's something in this about like motherhood, maybe, right? She births Sue.
Oh, yeah.
Sue kind of takes and takes and takes. It's sort of like a really fucked up, disgusting version of the Giving Tree, right? Right? Because also at the same time, right? She has the opportunity to end it, but she just can't.
That's true. And she actually has 2 opportunities to end it. The first one where she calls and I'm like, do it. It's just your finger right now.
Yep.
And she doesn't do it. And then I guess the second time is the termination scene.
Right, where she almost does it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she does do it, but then
she does it halfway. I think there's a little bit of the
There's a little left. Yeah,
you're
she
right.
doesn't
There
fully
is a
do it.
little. Yeah.
And so then another thing too, I thought of it as a really serviceable metaphor about like addiction.
Yes.
And just like reliance on all artificial forms of dopamine, right?
No,
like
I 100% agree with you.
Tell me why.
On the addiction. And as I watched it, the first and second time I saw it, I got vibes of Requiem for a Dream. And apparently the director also referenced Requiem for a Dream.
Explicitly shown.
Yeah, because like the hole in her back looks like I'm pointing to these things as if people can see what I'm doing. The like hole in his arm in Requiem. Yeah. The scene where she's sort of like frustrated and cooking and destroying the apartment reminds me of the Ellen Burstyn?
Ellen Burstyn,
scene in her apartment. So it was like, I feel like there's definitely, and also the idea that like, because you mentioned like harming your body or like, and then addiction. It's like she hates herself so much, even though like society and everyone around her has basically said she's too old, she's not attractive anymore, she doesn't serve a purpose, but she is attractive and she could be successful. Women, when you hit 50, you're just seen as
disposable.
Yeah. Exactly. Which
is bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Right,
but the end, when she's like erased basically by the cleaning thing over the start, like she is disposable. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
No, I love. I mean, I think we're just in agreement about just coming back to the like addiction allegory, right? I think that it is, of course, intoxicating. It's a form of intoxication to be given a sexy new version of yourself that is just so congruous with what your environment demands, right? It just works so well. And I think it really just helps to explain a lot of her reticence to terminate the experience, so to speak. And I think that's, I see it as significant too, that Sue's first night of transgression happens. She's really drunk and she comes home and she's trying to sleep with this dude, but she needs the extra stabilizer, and so she goes in and like that's the first time she does it, right? So I think that it's interesting that like drugs are incorporated into that transgression. I mean, the film is called The Substance, which brings to my mind the phrase substance abuse, right?
There's needles involved.
There's needles involved in every stage. That's right. I was really just like struck by every time something goes wrong and they call that hotline, the advice is to respect the balance, right? Respect the balance.
Which is sort of kind of the glad handing you get when, if you are in trouble and you're trying to find help, sometimes the places where you're trying to find help don't know what to say to you.
Right.
And so they just say, something that placates you, and you're
Right.
like, oh, right, yeah, I'll do that,
Absolutely.
do that. But you're not really in control of it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think of like brain chemistry balance too, right? And like how many times for a lot of addicts that balance is impossible to respect. Like how are you going to do that? And just the overall idea that it doesn't matter how horrifying the reality becomes, quote unquote, air quote, reality becomes, the alternative is always justified, right? It's like self-justified.
Right.
So I just like all these different ways of looking at this story, honestly.
I think that's what makes it such a fun watch, is it doesn't become tedious in the message because it keeps bringing in these new nuanced things that just keep it really interesting.
Yeah, there's so many layers, which I feel like those arguments of it's heavy-handed almost doesn't work then, because there are multiple readings.
There's a lot of readings, totally. So I agree. I'm sorry if I'm belaboring analysis here. Have you all read The Picture of Dorian Gray?
Oh, God.
I feel like I must have in high school at some point, but I really don't remember.
You don't remember
I
it?
don't remember it either. I just remember...
Is there an attic involved?
Yeah, there's an attic and a painting in the attic.
Look at me go.
You look at you.
You're like, I'll mention a part of the house. Maybe it's involved. I mean, no, there's like a painting.
Yeah, so Dorian Gray...
Is the painting getting older?
Yes, the painting gets uglier. So Dorian Gray is a beautiful young man who becomes increasingly morally corrupt as the novel goes on. And in tandem, a painting that he owns gets uglier and uglier. It's like a visual illustration of his inner hideousness. And he hides it in an attic. But the thing is, he like kind of gets off on like every now and then going up there and like looking at just like how gnarly it's getting,
Nice.
This is not the only... I've heard of people comparing it to like a version of that story. I wonder, is that an apt comparison, or is it missing something?
I'd say yes and no, right?
Yeah.
Because Sue doesn't want to look at Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She drags the picture away. She puts her into that bathroom cabinet that she builds somehow.
Oh my God. Yes.
Totally not code.
Totally weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's impeccable.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It's great work.
Yeah. Hire her for my kitchen,
That's
right?
what I was thinking.
Well,
But yeah, I agree with you. Yes and no. Maybe the male version, which is Dorian Gray, is different than the female version, which wants to erase the quote-unquote ugly part as opposed to watching the ugly one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
maybe it's just not the same, but
Well, the other one that I saw people compare this to was the movie Seconds. Which is it's a Rock Hudson movie, and I have not seen it, so I can't really speak to how accurate it is, but it is about, a guy who's unhappy with his life and his marriage and all of this, and so he goes and has some sort of surgery that changes him into a new person, and he goes to wherever to live this new life, and then becomes increasingly disillusioned by it, and then eventually wants to have the surgery undone, but by undoing it, he dies.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so I've seen kind of I've seen people touch on both stories, but I think that there's a lot of throughout the movie, visually and thematically, there's a lot of nods to various things.
Yes,
it
there are.
pulls from a lot of sources while not taking too much from any of them, I feel. So I think that the Picture of Dorian Gray is kind of a good, this inspired, but it's not wholly...
it's not really representative. of-
Right,
yeah.
right. And I also agree with you that the telling the story from a male gaze versus a female gaze is completely different, right? The motivations for either are very different.
I do agree with you too about the pulling influences, but not like you can see the little influences, but none of them are so like obvious. Like this is this is being inspired by.
Right.
X, because I've heard like Kubrick for visuals.
Yeah. A lot of those like hallway shots are very
Yeah.
Shining-esque. I felt like
I had to look up the carpet because I was like, is that the carpet?
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because
Yeah.
the walls cover with blood at one point,
Oh, yeah.
which is very
That
like.
too.
But I'm like, none of it really also. It's like little hints towards things.
Yeah.
But then it, like Cronenberg, like there's
Right.
a hint, but then it moves in another direction.
Yeah.
And like takes you away from that.
Well, and something that I'm appreciating, and I sense us slipping into critique, which is great.
That's great. We can hop in.
Something that I'm appreciating of what you said just to start off this conversation was talking about the ways that, a lot of those intentional stylistic nods direct the viewer's eyes in intentional ways, right? Like toward the figures and the bodies and it makes me, I was coming in here ready to critique this movie a little bit for kind of doing a little bit of a reference visual salad. But, maybe you've convinced me a little bit that there's actually reasons for those things, Well,
I also think there's a sweetness to it. It's dropping little love notes along the way that, kind of excite you because you see where... It makes you excited to see where things build from, and it also excites you to see that it doesn't take too much.
Yeah.
And you can sort of view it as we're just getting little injections of the stabilizer from those various formats,
Oh, interesting.
but we're not taking so much that, those... Either the movie that we're watching or the movies that we remember are becoming distorted by that.
does anybody have like one of those online lists of all the references?
We could just look one up.
Because I'd be
Quick.
interested. Yeah, I'd be interested to see if like, is there something kind of subversive in this? Like, is she pulling from a lot of like male auteurs in a way, kind of like reworking a lot of their artistic visions into something that is like subversive to the patriarchy? In a way?
It could be. I was thinking about this. So I listened to your episode on the movie that was filmed in Ithaca.
Oh, Bad Things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was laughing when I was watching this movie because the critique of that one was that it was supposed to be The Shining, but told from the female perspective. And I feel like this is not supposed to be. It's told from a female perspective, and it's taking little bits from these movies that maybe are written by mostly men.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's not just a copy of
Right,
it.
exactly,
It's
yeah.
it's something else,
Right.
and it's something I think very fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think that it has much clearer things to say than Bad Things.
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I did find a list.
Okay, what you got?
So the director.
Scene 1 is absolutely a reference with the eggs.
One? Oh, what do you think it's a...
To what?
Reanimator.
Oh,
It's the
shit.
substance is Reanimator green. It's that classic old
shit.
movie
Interesting.
green. I saw that first scene and I started clapping. I was like,
Nice.
"This is going to be a great movie."
That's
I
That's
can't
not one
wait.
of the ones listed, but I definitely see
I mean,
it.
that's
'Cause
what I took from
No,
it.
because the color of the substance, is that...
Yeah,
Is that neon green?
yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so what you got?
So the director, Coralie,
Fargeat.
thank you,
Welcome.
was influenced by a variety of films, including, apparently, it doesn't say the films, but Stanley Kubrick, David Cronenberg, and John Carpenter. And then The Elephant Man, The Fly, The Thing, The Shining. I don't understand this one, but the first Star Wars trilogy,
Oh, that's interesting.
RoboCop. I guess she has said that she has a passion for genres outside of reality, such as body horror and science fiction, to help her create monsters with monstrous appearances that audiences would still empathize with. Which I can see Elephant Man for that reason.
Yeah,
it's a
sure.
very sad
Right.
movie.
Sure.
Time out quickly. Do we want to do the cider?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
You want to pop that open?
We're about to go to the rankings. We got to drink this.
Sam, now how do you open this situation?
We're gonna find out. I'll do it right
you
in
do a
front
twisty and
of
a-
the microphone.
Ooh, that's our soundbite. Okay.
Okay.
Hang on,
preview.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
I like the little yelp after it. Oh man.
So are we going to move into rating?
watched the movie again today for the second time, I am giving it a 7.5.
Nice.
I really liked it. Really, really liked it. But I'm just going to read some of my criticism here. Mm-hmm. The end. The tone shift. When she goes out on the stage and that music is like bum, 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 bum. I don't know what the fuck that's from, but it's
it becomes, it's very
and then it's
Carrie.
Like,
it's very Carrie.
Well, I like the Carrie part.
Yeah.
But, so okay. I hate that music when she walks out. It feels like a joke. It feels like, she's like fat, essentially. Like she's but I'm like, I don't, it's not the right tone for this movie. It feels like it wants to be Carrie with the blood instead of fire, and I do like this because Carrie wasn't a villain and she was bullied and this person's being bullied, but I don't want to laugh, and this felt funny. And I did read something where the director said that she likes to blend humor with really graphic extreme moments because it's more palatable for the audience. The part where her head is popped or explodes, her head grows back, and then she's like spewing blood all over them, and there's metal music in the background. I was like, I want to feel bad for her. I want to feel sadness. I want to feel something, and instead I feel, the first time I watched it, I felt like cringy. Like I was watching a 5th grader do stand-up comedy. Like I was embarrassed for them.
Specifically a 5th grader. You know who you are, Kevin.
You're trash.
There's probably a memory there that we could unpack, but...
we won't go into that. Rewatching it the second time, I liked it a little more. I really do love the ending where she's on top of the star, but that part in the theater drops it for me. If that part in the theater had been done differently, I probably would have given this an 8 or an 8.5, but because of that part, it gets a 7.5.
Yeah. I was also really taken aback by the final act in the theater. Because... yeah, it veers full tilt and it really embraces absurdity, and I feel different. I like it though. I think in the end, I didn't realize we had gotten there. I had picked up on the fact that in this movie we are not really functioning in reality exactly, right? There's a lot that's extremely stylized to the point of fantastical representations of some things, but also I did feel like it was, the earlier parts of the movie felt a little more tethered to reality than that late part of the movie, and I agree that part is like a bit, while it does grow over the course of the movie, that where the moment when she knocks on the door having given herself the activator again, and she's just this enormous like monster, right? Wearing the face of Elizabeth, and the guy opens the door for her and he's just like, "Oh, we were so worried about you. Come on in," right? Right. Like, and although that, I think they do kind of try to explain that as like
it's in her
like
head,
a hallucination or something. It's still like it.
Like, how'd she get in?
And also, she got out onto that stage with all of those naked women for, like, this thing that children are there for, too.
That's on primetime.
Right.
That part was questionable. I was like, do they not have bras on? Are they just...
No, it's a lot, yeah. All boobs.
Out?
All boobs hanging out. So anyway, it just really veers into the absurdity there. But I like the effect. I like the metal music and the just immense blood cannon. Right? Like, I just think it's just so, it just really dives in. You know what I mean? It really commits.
Wait, what's your number?
Oh, my number. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
I liked it. I thought it was as good as any. I think I gave Barbarian an 8. I think I gave 8. 8 is basically as high as I go without feeling like the movie has somehow achieved like classic status.
Have you ever given anything? You gave Caveat an 8.25.
I did.
And you gave Oddity an 8.
I gave Oddity an 8.
You gave Barbarian, quote, 8 plus territory.
Yeah.
And you gave Husera an 8.
I did.
You're just giving 8s all over the place.
8's a really common.
That's his number.
Like, if I really like a movie, but I'm just not certain that I'll be talking about it in 10 years. That's the number.
Interesting.
Right? So,
in my mind, good horror movies are not necessarily good movies.
Yeah, it's what you like.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right.
So for me, this movie is a solid 10.
Nice.
Whoa!
I love.
You're the first person to ever give a 10, just so you know.
It's the first 10.
I will.
Where's the Jen? Get the confetti, Jen.
That's when you're going to put the soundbite in, right? I loved every aspect of this movie, and is it going to win an Oscar? I don't know, and I don't care. It was just so much fun. I had an absolute blast watching this.
Yeah.
I loved, like I said, everything. The casting was so on point, and knowing kind of the backstory of Demi Moore's journey through Hollywood and her taking the risk to be in this movie where she's got to be sitting there under super harsh lighting, completely naked.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I loved the prosthetics that were involved and a lot of the physical effects. Yes, there was CGI, but Jen, as you know, I love a good physical effect.
But one of the only CGI things was her face on the back of the costume.
Right.
That outfit.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yes.
And it still looked good.
Yeah.
It did look good. Yeah. I actually thought that was... I thought that was practical, actually.
Me too.
I thought they found a way. I was like, that costume is big enough. They probably got her in there somehow.
I mean, they definitely got Margot in because she was... They needed her for the close-ups. Yeah. But... the physical effects in this, I thought, were really great. And it's just not something that we see in a lot of movies anymore because it's expensive, right? And it's time-consuming. And I thought they did a really good job of that. I loved the color in this movie. The use of color, how it developed over time. I loved the grotesque use of perspective, which we talked about earlier, forcing the eye to certain places or making you feel a certain way about who it was that you were viewing. The story was one that I think is, it's told from the female perspective, but I think can be understood by a lot of people.
Definitely.
And, yes, the grand finale felt like a different movie, but the movie changed so much during the course that I felt like a bloodbath of that magnitude was completely necessary and really fun, right? Because you don't, if we're thinking about the way that, to go back to one of the earlier analyses about how the pressure on women to be a certain way and to be perfect is ever present in the back of the mind. One of the other things that we're hit with a lot is when we have a complaint about something or when we want to change something, we need to calm down. We're being hysterical. And I felt like the end part of the movie was really leaning into that internalized screaming that I think every woman does on almost a daily basis of, don't tell me what I should be thinking. Don't tell me how I should be feeling. This is what I'm feeling. Blood everywhere. Right. And so even though it sort of took you out and made it a more campy movie, Frankenstein, that was the other reference I was trying to... Kill the monster, right? And I just felt like it was really poignant as well because you get these close-ups of both Sue and Elizabeth's faces in the costume, and you still see these glimpses of really vulnerable women who are trying to present themselves on a stage in front of people who aren't having anything. And all you can see are their eyes, and their eyes are so expressive. And they're so beautiful, even though what is surrounding is grotesque. Right? And it was the same way when, when Elizabeth starts shambling around like Baba Yaga out of the bathroom. Where, when she and Sue were fighting to the death, there was this light that hit her eyes, and you're like, I can still see Demi Moore under all those prosthetics. And it's beautiful.
I really thought that like the way they did some of the practical effects and there was like prosthetics.
Like, you still
really good.
felt it was the person.
Yes, it still felt like Demi. I felt like Demi Moore. I was like, even though I gave this a 7.5 for the ending, I feel like Demi Moore should win an Oscar for this. She was fucking amazing.
She did great,
and she wasn't the first choice. I don't remember who the first choice was, but she was not the first choice.
It can't be anybody else.
No.
It can't be.
Because this is basically her
life.
Yeah. So I read something where she apparently didn't know what body horror was until this movie.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, what a shock that must have
Well, that's
been.
an introduction.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, like, I feel like the realities of like making a movie are probably... She probably didn't understand it until she like saw it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like it's all about the effect.
Well, I think she probably had to be told that, you're an aging actress.
Yeah.
She had to have been told some part of the plot in order for her to understand that she wouldn't be filmed in a nice
like
light.
a male gaze.
But I think like
Yeah.
probably didn't expect maybe because a lot of movies are not practical effects anymore, and that is one thing that I did love about this is that it was, and the practical effects were good. Like they fucking zoomed in on that finger in the beginning, like real into
real
the
janky.
skin,
Yeah,
and I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
Like there's also the other prosthetics where Margaret Qualley, is that her name?
Yeah,
her boobs were not her boobs. They
really
were,
not?
when you look through the credit, it says there's like a whole thing for her boobs. So they were prosthetics so that she would have, quote unquote, like the perfect boobs.
Perfect boobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, even though she probably has like a amazing body and amazing boobs as it is, they wanted
more.
supernatural
tits.
Yeah.
The kind that are unattainable, which I was like, oh my God, watching this movie, like, and not knowing that, like, so many people will think, oh wow, that is like the perfect body, but it's like it's not attainable.
But
doesn't that kind of make you feel better about yourself?
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you watching it at the end, you're kind of like, meh.
Yeah,
I'm doing pretty good.
You're like, oh, even that one's not real. Great.
Definitely.
So, and the finale, it was a good point for me to kind of laugh at the absurdity of it all, because when you're doing sort of these things to yourself and diving into these ridiculous, fix it fast schemes.
Yeah.
It is bordering on absurdity. Oh my goodness, you guys. This cider is hitting hard. It does border on the absurd where, things are happening faster than you can kind of control. And so I thought the ending actually was really quite fitting for the movie.
And I think that the movie played with its own sense of reality enough throughout that I even though it feels like a big turn for me, I feel like I can excuse it, or I feel like it's a little bit. I feel like it's not that we don't see it. It's not that we can't see it coming.
I do want to say, I feel like you guys are convincing me to like the ending more.
I'm surprised you didn't like the ending more.
So I liked it more the second time. I think watching it the second time, I could see the shift change more coming. But I think that the one thing I think I can do the Carrie, like I like the Carrie part. I can do the blood. I think the one thing that still really bothers me is that, like, what is that song and what is it from that she walks onto the stage?
I'm going to have to watch it again to find out what the song is.
I tried to Shazam it. It's the one that's like, oh my God, this is like 2 drinks in. Bum, 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 bum.
Oh, yeah.
That's
from 2001.
Yeah, there you go.
Bum, bum, bum,
Yeah.
bum, bum.
I hated that.
But that wasn't ever like a overweight song. That was this unveiling
that's
of
like a big reveal, right? That's like
Well, to be fair, I may have never seen all of 2001.
And to be fair, you don't have to.
Right.
You can watch the first hour or less.
I did.
And be fine.
Oh, okay.
And you'll get to that part.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
You know what sells me actually on the ending is I see the fact that there is like a little girl in the audience who gets covered in blood and is crying and is clearly traumatized by this experience. I see that as like a real attempt to like grapple with some complexity in this ending, right? Because like if you think about it, on the one hand, you know, this little girl is a child. She's innocent. She doesn't understand maybe the full context of what's going on around her. But also, is she not just a part of the idolatry that has grown around Sue?
Well, she's
And
wearing the same dress, right?
she's wearing the Sue dress, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
like, I don't know. Are we condemning the little girl with the rest of the audience? Are we...
Well, maybe the little girl is doomed because she's a girl to like go through all of these same things that Elizabeth and Sue have gone through.
So she's crying sympathetically?
No, she doesn't know. She doesn't understand. She's crying because of the chaos.
Yeah.
But there's like something deeper there by showing the child.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was going to bring up is that, you know, in modern marketing, since probably, you know, the early 2000s, there's been a push to having more realistic looking models in magazine ads
Right,
and all
right,
of this.
right.
And in makeup ads, they now have to put, you know, this model is wearing false lashes with our mascara
Oh,
and
interesting,
all
okay.
sorts of stuff like that. But what studies have found is that it doesn't actually affect the consumer in any way. They know it's fake, but they still want the ideal. And so we're already fucked.
Yeah.
Right? And we've been that way for a long time. And so a lot of these kind of criticisms that, you know, we're not really trying to solve the problem with this movie. It's not really a takedown of the male gaze or the patriarchy. It's just acknowledging that it's there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to fix anything. I think it's supposed to tell us how messed up
Yeah.
that vision is, right? And with the little girl in hand, it's the same sort of thing where she's idolizing Sue and she's crying because of the chaos and she just doesn't know, but she's already on the train.
Right.
Yeah, and
right,
her
right.
mom is fearful, and her mom is going to feed into that, and questions will be asked later.
Well,
and
and
the
her
mother
mom's
will
also
explain-
not covering her eyes or like trying to shield her from any of
or
it.
picking her up, or comforting her,
or
in
like
any
running
way.
away. You know, there's
Yeah.
other people
Yeah.
that are running to the sides trying to get out.
They're
but-
just like sitting
Yeah, they're
there
just
getting
chilling.
sprayed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did notice that too, and I thought that was
Which they did use a lot of gallons of blood, I think.
oh, so much
So
blood.
great.
Like such an incredible bloodbath at the end.
The funny thing I saw was the blood that they used for the bloodbath looked like blood, but when she dissolved into the star, it looked like the ketchup from the burger,
yeah.
and, which
That's
I just
right.
thought was really funny.
Oh
right?
my god, that's true, because he kind of in the beginning smushes it around a little.
Right, yeah.
I will say,
But it was like a completely different color.
but it's the beginning and the end starts with the star, the superficialness of the star.
Right.
I was thinking one other thing I did. I feel like every time I watch the ending, I feel confused. But I really liked the scene where they shoot above and she's like spinning like a ballerina almost, and the blood
Yes,
is shooting out. I thought that was a great shot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Just a random side note.
Another random side note of lighting and a shot was when Demi Moore, Elizabeth, is in the bar and she's got that super harsh lighting on her back. 'Cause she's wearing like that super deep V-neck back, and it's really harsh lighting. And I know it's supposed to be highlighting the fact that something's going to come out of her back eventually, but it was just so it was in stark contrast to like the couple that's over in like this dimly lit area where they look really beautiful and young and happy, and she's there with like this 1,000,000-watt light bulb right above her head, and her back is beautiful. She's in her 60s, right? She looks great.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to kind of view it as like, or we're supposed to see it through her vision as it's not good enough. I think it calls out a really good sentiment and good idea in that lighting is key in a lot of situations.
Oh, yeah.
If the internet has taught us anything, it's that lighting and angles are key,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And the fact that they leaned into making her look bad was a really fun choice, and good on her for taken that leap. For someone who's spent her entire life in the tabloids,
Yes.
after G.I. Jane came out and she got all of the reconstructive surgery because she didn't feel like a woman after filming that movie anymore because she'd worked out so hard and all of this. Just the fact that she took on this role is so... I just think it's really incredible.
Yeah.
That she could consciously say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and it's not going to affect me in the same way that the other one did. You know, sort of an acceptance, a maturity, if you will, coming to terms with yourself.
Yeah,
but it happens as you age. So
I think that is a thing that also, like, it's like for women, I feel like it's like when you're not in your 20s anymore, like suddenly, like, because I feel like that's a thing that all of the pictures of what quote unquote you're supposed to look like as a woman, you're only shown pictures of people who are in their 20s,
right?
Basically. Right. So, like, every woman I've talked to throughout my life always has found something wrong with themselves, essentially. I remember specifically one moment in time where I was happy with my weight.
Right.
And it was a very short moment in time. And it's like, that is crazy. Like...
And that you still think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like I can remember.
It occupies a space of your mind that really should be open for other things.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Way more intellectual, important things.
Right.
Not
intellectually important.
Yeah.
Whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know,
more fun than that.
Yo, for sure. For sure.
Well, so something we often play on this show is Who's the Hottest? Do we feel like that's appropriate?
Yes.
I feel like we still have to do it.
You have your answer. All right. Okay. I will let you guide that.
Mine is absolutely Demi Moore.
Yeah.
But after she gets that finger.
Oh, Demi Moore with the funky finger.
With the funky finger.
Oh, all right. Why?
I don't know. I just kind of like it.
Are you like, you want a little imperfection?
She's just too pretty otherwise, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I can... Okay, yeah, but it's also... Isn't part of her face a little... Or is it just her finger?
It's just her finger for that first one. I
do think that they like subtly enhance some of
the
her facial wrinkles and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you say anything other than Demi Moore, I feel like you're wrong here. I mean, I just think it's so badass that she did this movie. Like, I mean, look, in terms of conventional attractiveness, she looks great, right? Obviously, but also just the fact that she, you know, is a what 60, 50s?
I think she's 62.
62-year-old woman doing this movie where she's essentially stark naked for like the whole fucking thing.
Right. If you're gonna pick Demi Moore, which version of Demi Moore?
Which version of Demi Moore?
He wants the gremlin.
You want the end version?
Gremlin. Give me the gremlin. Now give me the finger and the one funky leg.
There you go.
I'm gonna take that.
Oh my God.
Her cooking the French cuisine.
Oh, the French cuisine. Rage cooking this fucking food.
Rage cooking, fattening food. I'll take it.
That does it for you? You see someone rage cooking and you're like, yeah.
Well, you know that food's going to be good.
Well, that's actually true. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, I know it's more conventional, but I really feel like when she put on that, like, when she was getting ready for the date, her first initial look, I was like, oh my God, she's so hot.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go with that. I think mainly because it was so heartbreaking, too.
It is
and
so
it's
heartbreaking.
Really
so
hard
hot.
to watch, yeah.
It is so heartbreaking. You know what's the saddest part of this movie for me, too? Is after she's gone full monstro, and then she's, like, trying to, like, straighten her hair and put the dress on and like
yes, and the earrings.
It's really sad.
She burns off part of her hair with the curling iron.
Yeah.
When she does that, the music stops too.
Yeah.
Should we play Armchair Filmmaker?
Yeah, I think we should.
So what's that?
This is a new one that we're trying out.
All right.
Where you get to make one change to the movie.
Ooh. Oh, I've got it.
For maximal effect.
Does it have to be...
It could be anything.
Anything. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I've got carte blanche. Good.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Cool.
But I'll go last. I'll go last.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well, clearly everybody knows what my change is going to be. I would change the music and the tone.
Okay.
But I would still have a theater scene, and I would still have it be like Carrie. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that. But I would change the tone and the music.
I would add a shot of Sue shoveling shit Like literally. No, literally. Like
wait, where though? I want to know the
from
context.
her hibernating other self. Like something that bothered me.
I never thought of that.
I was like,
You were getting into the mechanics of the hibernation.
and I really try not to do that. I try to stay out of that shit. But
Right.
like one of the things that was like, wait, but does the sleeping self not defecate at all? Do they not?
I had a moment when I was like, the cleaning lady's coming. What are they going to do with the body?
Right. I feel like it would add a little something too. But I guess if you're shoveling the shit, then you are caring for the other self in a way that Sue doesn't really show any interest.
But what
in.
if
So-
what if Sue just like, because she built the fucking room essentially,
Right.
So she could also build a hole in the ground where like her ass is slightly over it, and that's where all the shit goes.
But she's on like the 20th floor.
Yeah, I don't know how that would
high-rise.
physically work.
Right. She could put a diaper on her,
She could even that. Even I would take that
Yeah,
even as like
yeah.
as just like a way to explain
but like
it.
not change the diaper because
or
she
just
doesn't
change
care
it at
about
the
her.
very end.
Yeah.
Like just just do it one time. This is gross. Sorry,
I
continue.
like the shovel better than the diaper.
Yeah.
My one change would be bring Burt Reynolds back from the dead and put him in Harvey's spot.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're right. That would have been good.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah.
good.
It was really unfortunate because as I was watching it, I was like, I just want this to be Burt Reynolds. Like he does a great job,
Right.
but
no, I think that would be a better change.
yeah.
I think it should have been Randy Quaid.
I would watch that. That would be, because all I can picture Randy Quaid in is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's
Independence
not forget.
Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Classic.
Can I ask one more superlative for us in this body horror film of objectively disgusting moments? What was the grossest moment in this movie for you?
Grossest for me was the teeth when she
The sound.
well, not even just that, but like when she's pulling out the rest of the teeth, because you've already had one just fall out.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of this the harm we do to ourselves sort of situation where she keeps messing with it and then starts pulling out the teeth, and when the camera shoots back up to her and you just see the close-up of her eyes and the tears rolling down her face.
Yeah.
I could feel it in like the,
Yeah.
I don't know, my ass clenched. Like
Yeah,
that's how
yes,
hard I could
yeah.
feel it. It was, I don't like teeth, I don't like nails, and I don't like eyeballs.
I had a
And
verbal,
this movie checked like almost all of
It
those.
did. Wait, were there were no eyeball things.
Well, her eyeball on stage pops out and the boob comes out.
And I
Yeah.
do love when the boob comes out, but the
I do
eyeball,
love that.
the eyeballs, there's like 2 or 3 eyeballs. when
Yeah,
they
that
activate.
didn't bother me
Oh,
so
okay,
much.
okay.
It's more like things touching them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the teeth was the grossest one for me.
I had a verbal reaction to that moment as well. I was sitting alone on the couch, just like, no. Like, yeah. For me, the grossest moment of this movie, it was after Sue has done her big transgression, where she has been Sue for 3 months, and Demi Moore has been just in that closet, and she realizes that she's out of spinal fluid, and she has to switch. And then Demi Moore comes out, and she's got this sexy boyfriend who's like banging on the door being like, what's up, baby? Are you okay? Right? And Demi Moore is shouting, get out, but she hawks this ginormous fucking loogie because of 3 months of hibernation and just like snot, and it was
Yeah, that was
gnarly.
very
Yeah,
fucking
it's gnarly.
gross. So gross. I don't know why, but like the stitching of the back really grossed me out. I think also because like my brain couldn't stop focusing on the fact that it was so smooth. It was such a clean cut.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be really like that.
Oh, sure.
But like that bothered me as well. Even I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't and then I was like, I don't know why I kept focusing on the way she did the stitches. It just really grossed me out.
It seemed very
though.
wide.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
I was like, is that going to heal right?
How is this? Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's also, she has to keep cutting the thread to tie it, and then instead just being one seamless thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms, we didn't really talk about this very much, but in terms of a body horror movie, this is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And it's not gratuitous for the sake of being. It's like actually showing kind of the decay of that body or the birth of the new body and all of this. And I really liked that aspect where it was kind of not leaning into it. Yes, it leaned into the gore, right? There's buckets of blood, but it's not leaning into it in a way that is not useful.
Like it's like there's a purpose.
Yes,
to it, which I love a body horror. There's not a lot of body horror movies,
and a lot of them aren't good.
No, they're not good,
right?
But I was happy that like we haven't gotten body horror in a while.
Yeah,
we've gotten a lot of supernatural and a lot of like
we did Husera, but
that
was like 6 months ago. Like yeah.
I think that's more tame. Though, like,
Husera's much tamer than this.
Yes, like that's absolutely. Like body horror, but it's also it is, but like this is what I think of when I think of body horror.
Right.
Like,
well, and another criticism that I was seeing online, what you were saying about it being too overt or whatever, people were like, "Oh, but isn't aging horror enough?" And it's like, no. Who wants subtlety with their body horror?
Yeah,
nobody.
Right. Also, aging should not be horror.
Aging shouldn't. Well, okay. So to a certain extent, I think that
fast aging, yes.
Fast aging is different.
Yeah.
And I do think that on a personal level, every person has the right to feel however they want to feel about the changing of their bodies, the change in ability level, physical capability, the understanding of advancing closer to death, right? I mean, I think everybody has the right to feel the way that they want to feel about that.
No,
and some of that can be horror. I think that's okay.
Totally agree. Like, no, I totally agree with you.
Right. But it doesn't. It doesn't need society's ostracization. You know what I mean? It doesn't need society's stigma.
Yeah.
About
just
it, you know?
I know we're gonna wrap up soon, but like X, Ty West X.
I haven't seen him.
The first one's not great, and the real horror in that movie is old people.
Okay.
And like that old people would have sex, or that old people blah blah. Like it's like, oh God, ew, gross, old people.
Yeah.
Which that should not be horror.
I saw that movie with a graduate student who's, much younger than I am, and she turned to me at the end of it and was like, "Oh my God, getting old must be so terrifying." And I was like, "It's actually not." Right? I don't know what this is, but we're fine.
Oh my God.
Well, have we reached the end? Do we have any final thoughts?
But we do need one more thing.
Well, we got our thing already. I'm just going to replay it.
Okay.
Which is our little pop of the cork.
All right, we got the sound bite.
And my scream.